what's up? Hello, my name is Emma, and today I'm giving you guys my review of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling. We are so close to the end of my Harry Potter series review, which is very sad for me because I have had the best time sharing my thoughts on these books with you guys in full. But if you would like to check out any of my reviews from books 1 through 5, as well as the script of Cursed Child, I will definitely leave all of those below as always. Now, Half-Blood Prince is a book that's very sentimental to me in regards to my Harry Potter journey. It's really the first book that I have coherent memories of reading. Like, I was a little bit older when this one came out. It was the first book that I read right when release date was. I read it in the span of 2 days while I was camping, and I just have really fond memories attached to Half-Blood Prince, but it is also just such a fantastic book. For the longest time, I've said that Deathly Hallows is my favorite Harry Potter book, but Half-Blood Prince is a very close second. And I have to say, after this reread, I think Half-Blood Prince has actually dethroned Deathly Hallows. I think I now consider Half-Blood Prince my absolute favorite Harry Potter book. I don't really know why Half-Blood Prince is my favorite now, but just it's always been really special to me. The characters are older, so they're a little bit more relatable. I feel like we're at a really interesting point in Voldemort's rise to power because we know he exists. He's there, but he hasn't really done anything, and it's just like this looming threat that's going around. We have the mystery of what Draco's doing in all of these attacks, and there's just something that I just love about the atmosphere of Half-Blood Prince that just the other books don't compare to, and I just love it so much. So I cannot wait to delve into all of my spoilery thoughts. So if you have not read Half-Blood Prince yet, I would highly recommend going out, getting to book 6 in the series, and coming back so we can discuss it together. But bye non-spoiler people. Also, this is gonna be like a really long review because I have so much I want to talk about. I also really like the last moment in this first chapter where the minister is like, but you're wizards, you can do magic, surely you can sort out anything. And Fudge leaves by simply saying, the problem is the other side can do magic too. Another golden moment at the very beginning of this book that I feel is always looked over, especially because it wasn't in the movie, is when Dumbledore comes to Harry's house and he sits down with the Dursleys and he actually tells them off for all of the abuse he's put Harry through for all these years. I think it was just a very validating moment for Harry, and I'm glad it was included. So Diagon Alley is where Harry's 6th year obsession with Draco Malfoy starts because he thinks that Draco has been branded with a dark mark, and that's why he was acting that way in the robe shop, and then he goes into Nocturne Alley, and this is where he starts spying on Draco, which he will continue to do for months and months and months. But specifically on the train, where Harry gets into his invisibility cloak and literally climbs up into Draco's compartment and hides where the luggage is so he can hopefully get more info on Draco, but then he ends up getting his nose broken by Draco. Honestly, Harry deserved it. We all know that was a super dumb, really careless thing to do, and just anytime he seems to use the invisibility cloak around Draco, he seems to get caught because the same thing happened in Prisoner of Azkaban. So I think from this point on, he should really stop. So one thing that really bothers me about the beginning of this book is when Harry has just arrived to Hogwarts. He's all bloody from Draco breaking his nose. He's late because he was petrified on the train. And Snape starts taking away house points before the term starts. I'm sorry, did we forget that moment in Chamber of Secrets where Snape is actually present, where Professor McGonagall won't take away points from Harry and Ron because term doesn't start until September 2nd? Like, I know it's Snape and he doesn't care whatsoever, but that inconsistency bothers me a lot, and I bet you Harry could have done something about it. So 6th year of Hogwarts, they're all Newt students, they pass their owls, so they're able to drop a bunch of classes, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione drop Care of Magical Creatures. We have been over my blooming appreciation for Rubeus Hagrid throughout this reread, so knowing that they all dropped Care of Magical Creatures just made me really sad. I fully understand they're Newt students, they can't take as many classes as they used to. Everyone in the comments is talking about how Hagrid's a bad teacher, but it still makes me sad because I know how much their presence in Hagrid's class meant to him, and he's not gonna have that anymore, and it's understandable, but it's just sad. On a happier note, Quidditch is so good in this book. Oh my goodness. The tryout scene where Harry has become Quidditch captain is always great because not only have just all the Gryffindor students shown up but people from other houses, and Harry is just like so done with everyone's shit because they're just there because he's the chosen one and not to actually play Quidditch. I think the scene where Harry pretends to give Ron the Felix Felicis is one of my favorite scenes in the entire series of Harry Potter. It's a great moment because you think Harry has done like like this crazy scandalous thing that he's just brushing off as not a big deal. And then we have all the excitement after Gryffindor wins and Ron is feeling confident, and then they have the big party. And then we find out that he didn't actually do it at all, and it was all like a placebo effect to make Ron more confident. In the Harry Potter fandom, we love to make fun of what dumb shit Harry can be sometimes, but that was a seriously clever moment, and I feel like I just view Harry in a different light after that because it just really showed like some cunning on his part, and I really liked that. Also, how could we forget the iconic commentary of Luna Lovegood? That is a moment that will go down in Harry Potter history. And also in the same match, that's when McLaggen is filling in for Ron because he was poisoned, and McLaggen is just trying to micromanage absolutely everyone when he's totally ignoring the goalpost, and him and Harry keep fighting, and then Harry gets hit by a bludger by McLaggen. It's so funny. I love it. So with this reread, I realized one of the things I love about Half-Blood Prince is the characterizations of the cast. Especially with Harry, I feel like this book is where his personality really develops. Like, the humor that is present in Half-Blood Prince is miles above a lot of the other books, and I feel like Harry is just more dedicated, more passionate. You know, he feels like he's really done some growing up in between Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince. Just everyone in this book feels like real people. They are well-rounded characters that have truly grown into their roles, and I think that's why I love Half-Blood Prince so much, because it's more relatable and it just feels more complete. Now, of course, some of the most memorable moments of Half-Blood Prince are when Harry and Dumbledore are going back into the memories of people who interacted with Voldemort before he was the dark wizard that he is today. I have to say, I wasn't a big fan of every single memory that's in the book. Some of them just aren't as exciting. While they definitely hold important information, they're not as interesting for me to read. But one I always love is reading Dumbledore's first meeting with Tom Riddle as a child in the orphanage. You know, it's like this whole string of memories from before Voldemort is even born. That's not a perspective we ever really get of villains in YA, and it's really valuable for that reason. We get to see each step he took to becoming Lord Voldemort, and like the psychology fanatic in me thinks that's so fascinating. But what I love about that memory with Dumbledore and Tom Riddle is at the end when Harry asks, "Did you know?" and Dumbledore replies, "Did I know I had just met the most dangerous dark wizard of all time?" I get chills every time. It is just so crazy to me. Another thing I love about Half-Blood Prince, because there are just so many, is Harry and Dumbledore's relationship in this book. Now, we started my discussion on Dumbledore in my Order of the Phoenix review, and we're going to continue it in Deathly Hallows because I just have so much to say. So I obviously have some issues with Dumbledore, especially in the way that he's still harboring secrets with Harry throughout this novel. But I feel like in Half-Blood Prince, with these meetings and these lessons that they're having, they start to interact more as equals, and they start to trust each other as much as Dumbledore can really trust someone. I just feel like their interactions from both ends are very meaningful. Like, I will never question that Dumbledore truly deeply cares for Harry. One of my favorite moments out of their relationship is when Harry says that Scrimgeour had said that he is Dumbledore's man through and through, and Dumbledore says, "How rude of him," and Harry replies, "I told him I was." And then Dumbledore's eyes get all watery and he says he's very touched, and like, you know he's touched. This is not just something he's saying. It's moments like that where I truly value their relationship, and I wish it was more open, and I wish that Dumbledore had made a lot of different choices in relation to Harry. But in these moments, like, it just makes me happy, it makes me feel good, and I like reading about them. Another really underrated scene in all of Harry Potter in total as a series is when Harry calls Kreacher, and as he does, he's literally getting beaten up by Dobby. Like, Dobby literally punches Kreacher's teeth out, and I don't understand why I have never heard another soul mention this. Immensely underrated scene. So I want to talk a little bit about the bubbling romances that really start to take hold in Half-Blood Prince. Obviously, Ron and Hermione, very, very slow burn, has gone on for many books. And everyone has always said that Harry's feelings for Ginny kind of popped up out of nowhere, which I already discussed in Order of the Phoenix. It's not true. I really like the romantic tensions in this story. It's definitely not overpowering. It's really an acid to the story because it's not that important, but I think it's executed very well. I like how Harry can't really make sense of his feelings for Ginny at first. Like, he recognizes that he's feeling jealousy, but he doesn't understand why, and he's constantly going back and forth if these feelings alone are betraying Ron because Ginny is his sister. The night that Harry takes liquid luck is the night that Ginny and Dean break up, and Harry and Ginny kiss for the first time after they win the Quidditch Cup. And this reread also made me realize that I truly believe that Harry and Ginny are one of the healthiest relationships in YA. I think they just have such a sweet love story. Like, Ginny has always had these feelings for Harry. Like, you know, she idolized him as a kid, and then when she was possessed and no one would really talk to her, he would play Exploding Slap with her, and she's remembered it all throughout the years. And she really never gave up on him, and she was just dating people to see if those feelings would go away. And then at the end, when Harry has to set off on this journey, he tries to break things off with her to protect her because her feelings are more important than his. I'm literally about to cry. They're just so sweet together, and they truly love each other, and watching their relationship build in the way it does in this book makes me very happy. And with Ron and Hermione, things start to get to a different level as well. They obviously aren't dating, they haven't really admitted their feelings for each other, but it's much more evident in this story when they're in their very first potions class, and Slughorn has the Amortentia, that is the love potion that adapts to the smells of whoever's smelling it to what they desire most. And I know J.K. Rowling revealed down the line that like the third scent that Hermione smells that she doesn't admit to in class is Ron's hair. And then of course when Ron moans Hermione's name in his sleep, like you can tell that there is like some genuine love going on beneath the two of them, but based off of certain situations, like with Lavender and with like their general pride, they're just not able to open up and express it to each other. Ron and Hermione have definitely been unhealthy towards each other in the past, or even toxic to a certain extent, but I've always had a soft spot for their relationship. Like, it's literally 6.5 years of building tension between the two of them. Like, it all started from that time where Hermione would hug Harry at the end of Chamber of Secrets, and she gives a handshake to Ron. Like, I'm telling you, 6 years in the making. Although I absolutely do not agree with some of the way that they've treated each other in the past, I believe it covers a really deep-seated love. And I know a lot of other people don't ship Hermione, but I will always have to. One of my absolute favorite scenes of Harry Potter, and I feel like I've said that like 3 times in this review already, but like one of my favorite scenes is when Harry and Dumbledore find out that Voldemort has made Horcruxes to protect his soul so he will be immortal. I devour this scene every time I read or listen to it on audiobook. Like, I cannot stop in the middle because it is so exhilarating to me. It's not even just the memory that they've obtained from Slughorn, where he gives Voldemort information about Horcruxes and what happens if you split your soul more than once, because that was really the only thing that Voldemort was asking. But it's the sequence of reasoning that Harry and Dumbledore go through where they're kind of bouncing off of each other and coming to the conclusion that Voldemort has made Horcruxes, he has like 6 or 7 of them, and he has protected them so that he cannot die. It's just such an exciting moment for me as a reader. Like, I feel like there's like a frenzy inside of me with all of the connections that are being made, and I love it. Also, a really exciting thing that I found out in Half-Blood Prince, and I feel like this is something that I've known and recognized over the years, but it's one of those things I forget every single time I reread it, and then when I get to this part, I'm like, oh my god, I remember that. At the very end of my Chamber of Secrets review, I ask a few questions as to how does Dobby know so much about the Chamber of Secrets, which leads to how does Lucius know so much about the Chamber of Secrets. And it gets answered in this book, which I was so pleasantly surprised, even though like I unconsciously had it in the back of my head. Like, it was so nice to be able to read that as I just talked about it a few months ago, and now I can talk about it again. So according to Dumbledore's logic, and this is definitely one of those moments in Harry Potter where we have to take Dumbledore's reasoning as fact, because that's how J.K. Rowling decided to reveal this information to us. Apparently, Lucius Malfoy was given the diary, and Voldemort told him it was enchanted, not that it was a Horcrux, but he said that it had special powers to open the Chamber of Secrets, and he was instructed to wait until Voldemort was ready to open it. But of course, Voldemort disappears for like 14 years, and he decides to open it to implicate Arthur Weasley. So as someone who has gone wild over trying to understand this part of Harry Potter for so many years, I'm really satisfied with this explanation. I'm glad it came along in the end. It's always really exciting to have questions about a book like early on and then have them answered later. It's one of my favorite things about being a reader and reading a long series. Also, at the end of the scene, we get a little bit more insight onto what is the actual weight of this prophecy, how much of it has to be fulfilled, because we already learned that the only reason that Voldemort and Harry have this relationship is because Voldemort chose to mark Harry as his equal. It's based off of his decision, not on fate. But this particular scene in Half-Blood Prince really solidifies the fact that Harry does have a choice in this prophecy, and it's the choice that makes all the difference, because Harry absolutely could ignore this prophecy. He could never go after Voldemort Voldemort. He could go into hiding for the rest of his life. Maybe Voldemort would never find him and they wouldn't have to go through this whole neither can live while the other survives thing. But the fact of it is that Voldemort would still pursue Harry because he believes that the prophecy has to be fulfilled and that he has to kill Harry in order to live. So it's likely that they would end up having to face off each other in the end. And so Harry and Dumbledore have this really interesting conversation where it's like, even if the prophecy never existed and you didn't have this like really unique relationship with Voldemort, like would you still want to go after him? Would you still want to kill him? And Harry says, yes, I would. And he realizes that he doesn't have to go through fighting Voldemort because of the prophecy. He's doing it now because he feels that it's the right thing to do and that's what he wants to do himself. The recognition that this is Harry's choice and it's not just fate, I feel is a very mature moment in Harry Potter. Like this is a very adult mindset for Harry to have, and I think all around it's a very pivotal scene for Harry Potter in general, which is why it's one of my favorites. Now I want to talk about Draco for a moment. I know this review is so long, but Draco has a very significant part in this book and there's a lot of discourse over Draco's role in the Harry Potter series. We're gonna branch off of this for the Deathly Hallows review to really conclude all of these character discussions, but I can really empathize with Draco in this book because I don't feel like any of this is truly his choice. He's being forced into killing Albus Dumbledore, and that's not something he ever wanted to do. I genuinely don't think Draco ever wanted to be a Death Eater, but he grew up in a household of Death Eaters, of a father that he looked up to, but totally brainwashed him into being this racist, entitled little kid that ended up being a bully. And Draco was absolutely voluntarily a bully, and I won't excuse that. I'm not trying to excuse any of his terrible actions in the book, but I think that we can't forget that like this is something that Draco is being manipulated into doing, and that's important to his character. It's so fascinating to me because Draco is literally plotting murder in this book, but through that we are able to see a more human side of him, and we're able to recognize what his upbringing has done to him and how it has impacted him. Again, I am in no way trying to explain away the very voluntary actions that Draco has committed throughout the past 6 books and the following book, but I think it's important that we do recognize that like Draco is being threatened. His life is on the line as well as the life on his family if he does not follow Voldemort's orders, and that's an important thing to remember when we're having this discussion. No, Draco is not a child anymore, and he absolutely has made his own decisions, but the impact of his upbringing and the conditions that he grew up with and the way that he's being manipulated by people that are much more powerful than him in this novel, and the fact, you know, his future actions that, well, I'm not going to spoil now because I know a lot of you haven't finished Harry Potter. Like, his entire character arc is so fascinating to me, and that's why I love talking about Draco Malfoy. Another great moment that happens in Half-Blood Prince that nobody ever talks about is when Harry realizes that Draco is in the room of requirement. He's been trying to get in for a while, but he ends up meeting Professor Trelawney, who has been thrown out of the room of requirement by Draco and the Death Eaters on the night that Harry is going off to find the Horcrux with Dumbledore. And so she's talking about how she was thrown out of the room, and Harry says, "You didn't see that coming?" I love Harry Potter so much. Also, with this interaction between Harry and Professor Trelawney, we find out that Snape is the Death Eater that heard part of the prophecy and mentioned it to Voldemort, and that is the whole reason why Harry's parents are dead, because Snape told Voldemort. Snape is a conversation for Deathly Hallows, but don't talk too much about it. I will say, at this point in the story, it definitely adds to the hatred for Snape that we're all feeling at the moment, especially with what happens at the end of the story. You know, there is just like so much emotion towards Snape at this moment, which is expertly done in J.K. Rowling's part. Of course, I love the scene where Dumbledore and Harry seek out Voldemort's Horcrux in the cave. It is just such an atmospheric scene. It is so suspenseful, and it does get very action-oriented at the end. Dumbledore drinking the potion that makes him relive his worst memories is always a hard scene to read. It's not necessarily as hard when you read it the first time because you don't understand what is really going on inside Dumbledore's head, but when you reread it for the second time, or like the 19th time in my case, it really packs a punch. But again, adding to the relationship between Harry and Dumbledore, another moment in line that I love from this book is when they have defeated the Inferi and Harry is trying to get Dumbledore back up to the castle because he needs Snape, and Harry says, "I will get you there, don't worry, Professor." And he says, I'm not worried, Harry, I'm with you. It is those moments that show me that Dumbledore truly cares for Harry, you know, regardless of the mistakes I feel he's made and the terrible decisions that I think he's made. Those moments are really important to me, and those are the parts of Albus Dumbledore that I love. So before the big finale of the Half-Blood Prince, when Harry and Dumbledore get back up to the tower, Harry is petrified because Dumbledore realizes that Draco has come to kill him. And what I love about this scene is that Dumbledore still tries to protect Draco. Like, Draco is standing there, wand at Dumbledore, threatening to kill him, and he's like, let me help you, Draco. I can hide you, I can hide your family, and we can protect you. Oh my god! There are a lot of things I want from Harry Potter. I want the encyclopedia I was promised in 2008 that apparently turned into the shit show we know as Pottermore. I want a spin-off series about the Marauders. I want a million short stories. But what I also want is an alternate ending of Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows where Draco has joined the Resistance and is helping Dumbledore and Harry fight Lord Voldemort. Can you just imagine Draco also going off on the journey to find the Horcruxes with Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and him using his skills that he does possess to help them find it? I am living. Is there a fan fiction about this? There has to be a fan fiction about this. I just need it in my life. So we get to the big end of the climax of the story where Snape has killed Dumbledore. Now, unfortunately, this was spoiled for me like right before I went camping. I saw a video on Facebook the night that Half-Blood Prince was released of these two guys driving around in a car, screaming outside of bookstores that Snape has killed Dumbledore. Did anyone else get spoiled by this video? Because I know a few people on Twitter have mentioned it, and I feel better knowing that like I wasn't alone, and a lot of us have also been spoiled by that same damn video. But you know, it doesn't get easier. It really was the plot twist of like this century at that point, where the entire world is just losing their minds because we don't have any information on this until the next year. And I think it was like one of the greatest decisions in a literary sense that J.K. Rowling has ever made. Like, it really shook the world, and I can't imagine Half-Blood Prince ending any differently. Another big part of the ending of Half-Blood Prince is, of course, when we find out that Snape is actually the Half-Blood Prince. I have to say, like, as a teenager, like, actually probably like a preteen or reading Harry Potter, I forgot about the whole Half-Blood Prince thing after Dumbledore died. Maybe that was the intention of the placement of this reveal, but I was like, what? Another big twist at the very end of Half-Blood Prince, I feel like all the twists are just going and going and going and going, is that the locket that Harry and Dumbledore received isn't even a real Horcrux. It was stolen by a guy named R.A.B., and they don't know if he's destroyed it yet. So Dumbledore dying, or Dumbledore being weakened to the point where he was when Snape killed him, all for nothing because they don't have the locket. Again, I just feel like it's a great twist to an already shocking ending. Like, all of those on top of another, like Dumbledore dying and Snape being the Half-Blood Prince and then them not even having the locket. Like, it made for a really great ending. And I think it just sets up Deathly Hallows so well because it's not even like they really have a victory at the end of Half-Blood Prince. Like, everything at the end of it is just in disarray, and they really have to pick up the pieces to continue on this journey to find the Horcruxes, and it's done so well. Now, to end this review on a lighter note, because we just talked about so many dramatic things that just happened, one thing I love is when everyone is sort of in the infirmary at the very end of the story. It's before Dumbledore is buried, and everyone is in the infirmary after battling the Death Eaters at Hogwarts. So Bill has been bitten by a werewolf, and Mrs. Weasley thinks that Fleur won't want to marry him anymore, or that he won't love her anymore, and she's being very adamant about the fact that they're still getting married and they still love each other, and it's a nice moment between her and Mrs. Weasley. But like, out of nowhere, Tonks just blurts out like, see, Remus, like, she still wants to marry him, I still want to marry you, and this is how we find out that Tonks and Lupin are in love with each other. But at this point, Lupin doesn't want Tonks to marry him because he feels that she deserves so much better than him because he is poor, he is old, and he has all of this stigma as a werewolf, and he knows that's going to extend to Tonks if they were married. And then it's a really sweet moment where McGonagall says, I think Dumbledore would be happier than anyone to know there's a little bit more love in the world. It's just like a very small but heartwarming moment at the end of all of this tragedy that's going on, where we have like these two budding romances that are starting to come together at the end, and I just love it so much. So that really concludes concludes my review of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Obviously, I have a lot to say about this book. I love it. It's my new favorite Harry Potter book, and I'm so excited to say that. Definitely let me know in the comments below what were some of your thoughts on Half-Blood Prince. If you want to comment on anything I mentioned, if you want to bring up something else so we can discuss, I would love to. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!